afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Hello to each one of you and welcome all our viewers from across the globe. UBI launched their live learning labs program last month. During our first session, as you know, we introduced you to creative writing. You all must be aware that although creativity is all about inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun, but at the same time, you can be sure that you can learn the specific skills by seeking advice and educating yourself to become a master in any chosen field. So there will be sessions conducted for you in both the languages, as you know, Hindi and English. And we are here today with our second session, another session where you will be learning a lot of things with our speaker and a beautiful host around. And very knowledgeable. Both the speaker and the host are so knowledgeable that you are going to for sure enjoy and learn a lot. We do have sessions which are planned in Hindi as well. Last time we did one session in Hindi a few days back. And for all those who are looking out for those, I would like to inform you, next week we also have it coming up in Hindi, a special session for writing haikus in Hindi. So keep watching and stay tuned. Today we are here with another session where you will learn how to write a perfect and gripping story. I know we all love to read stories, but as writers, we keep on experimenting with different forms of writing, different forms of creative writing. And story writing is one such form which even I want to learn. So how about learning it together? This is our first session on this topic, and we do have more sessions planned where we will teach you the nuances and intricate details of this craft. So stay tuned. And if you have any questions and queries, please don't hesitate to ask us in the comments. So when you're watching me, you must be able to comment in the comment box. In the comment section, what you can do is whatever questions come to your mind, keep on asking, keep on shooting it to us. Even if we can't take it this time, if at all it is not covered in this topic, we are having planned session later, so we can cover it up later too. So not taking much of your time, I will move forward and I'll invite our host, Preeti ma'am, and our speaker of the day, Anamika Kundu ji. Hello, everyone. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, Neeti ma'am.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, namaskar, everybody.
So how was the day today at your end?
It's been a glorious day. When the sun shines bright, you can be sure the God is looking down upon you.
Absolutely, absolutely. How are you, Anamika ma'am?
I'm doing very good. Thank you so much, Sapna ma'am. It's a happy day here too.
Welcome to the show. And before I move forward, I know everybody knows Neeti ji, but as a protocol, I must introduce her to you. For all those who have watched us for the first time, Neeti Parti ji is an educationist. She is a prize-winning poetess and writer and exhibited artist. Her artistry work you can see all over Facebook and various art galleries as well as UBI Forum. She's an editor and she is a teacher at heart. She was the education director of one of the renowned chain of schools. And founding principal, she did receive an award of best upcoming school in UP. It's not easy to get that. And she has contributed to more than 40 anthologies. Oh my God, I can't even imagine them. Editing and compiling too. There are 7 of them which she has edited and compiled. So, I mean, I can go on and on with the kind of awards she has. She's got umpteen awards on various platforms, and we are blessed and really honored to have her as a host for our show. Welcome, Neeti ji and Anamika ji. I will hand over the stage to Neeti ma'am and Anamika ma'am.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you and to interact with everybody. I feel humbled every time you say something about me because I don't know. It's your vision actually that we take forward, Sapna ji, and it is your platform that we take forward and find ways for other people to join us because it is the vision of LLP and in fact UBI LLP to create souls that realize their goals through learning literary skills and broadening literary experience through a trinity of activities. How beautiful is your vision Sapna ji, and I wish you success and lots of glory on your way forward. And all those who are with us, she just mentioned about storytelling. It is so dear to our heart. Everybody loves stories, no matter where you are, whatever you are reading, watching, TV programs, even on WhatsApp, there's a story building everywhere. So how do you put it into a certain format is what we are going to get into. And remember, it's not just a learning program that is going to give you happiness for yourself. It is going to help you spread happiness, because when you write stories, that's what you do. You spread happiness. And we have as our guest a wonderful, wonderful person, a very dear person, Anamika, who's again an educationist who loves to her profession, and it is her passion. She's been teaching English for nearly 25 years, and nurturing is her passion. Isn't that what every teacher should be doing? She naturally takes her students under her wings as she does her best to bring out their best to the fore. God bless you, Anamika. That's what God has entrusted us to do, and hopefully we are doing his work. A voracious reader, she loves to read stories, and of late has been writing regularly and has 6 books as a co-author. Kudos to you, Anamika. Well done. More writing success to you. And one she has ably conceptualized and edited, and has been felicitated many times for her writing and for her debut editorial venture. Congratulations, Anamika, and we are so proud of you. And there's another side to her actually, which is, something I wanted to bring to the fore. She runs marathons, half marathons. Take a look at her today and feel inspired. She's all ensconced, all sari wrapped around, looking very much the educationist.
Part of Anamika ji, I'm also knowing today. I got to know today.
No, I wanted to bring that up because, we are not unidimensional.
Absolutely.
And that she runs at this age, and not just, I shouldn't say this age, that she runs itself is an inspiration for all of us. And she's run the Mumbai Marathon a couple of times. And she's been invited to address a writers group with members across the globe as its founder admin for her writing skills, as its founder for people who have admired her writing style. And even as she rejoices turning silver, her enthusiasm to learn has not diminished. And not just that, Anamika, not just learning, your way of keeping yourself going and alive with all the running you do, absolutely bowled over. Thank you for being with us, Anamika.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for those words of making me feel so good about myself, Neeti ji. But first of all, I would like to thank Sapna ji for this wonderful platform and for inviting me here to share whatever little I know. I must congratulate you for this beautiful platform of United by Ink. The name itself is so beautiful. And then this program of learning labs, promoting and propagating language learning, literature learning, it's so wonderful. And like you said, that stories spread happiness and joy. So I'm very, very grateful to you, and I'm very happy to be here. And thank you so much, Neeti ji. You are a voracious reader yourself, such a creative person. It's humbling to be on the same platform with you.
Thank you, Anamika. And now we've been talking about using the term, that learning term today, which is short story writing. So what is a short story? I mean, let's begin from the beginning and define this particular genre of writing.
Yes, I think that's a very good place to start, right at the beginning. What is a short story? All of us have been hearing stories because stories are all around us, everywhere. We can listen to people conversing, we can eavesdrop, we can watch something while you're traveling and wonder, are those two people, talking to grow together, or are they debating on something? So that leads us to wonder. And then what is a short story and how is it different from probably a long story or a novel? So it's the word count. Anything, you can narrate a story in as short as a paragraph, or you can have up to 20,000 words, technically is still called a short story. So that is how it is different.
That is so well said, Anamika. It's the word count, and usually something less, around 2,000 is what we count as a short story, but it could be just a paragraph, it could be 500 words, or even less, depending on how you have envisioned it. And I would very much like you to kind of introduce us to a well-known story, because when we started this platform, I told our viewers, and I'm keeping that promise, that every time we come forward, there's something from literature that we will bring to you, which will give them an insight into what has been done thus far, and perhaps inspire them to read further. So can we have a story from you, something that is from the literary world?
Yes, Neeti, I think you've put it across very well, that let's have a little snippet from the rich world of literature. I have selected a very short story called The Appointment in Samara. It has been retold by Somerset Maugham, and I'll just read it out to you. It's actually a short story.
Yes.
There was a merchant in Baghdad who sent his servant to the market to buy provisions. And in a little while, the servant came back, white and trembling, and said, "Master, just now, when I was in the marketplace, I was jostled by a woman in the crowd. And when I turned around, I saw it was death that jostled me. She looked at me and made a threatening gesture. Now, please, master, lend me your horse, and I will ride away far from the city and avoid my fate. I will go to Samara, and there death will not find me." The merchant, feeling sorry, lent him his horse, and the servant mounted it, and he dug his spurs in its flanks, and as fast as the horse could gallop, he flew to Samara. Then the merchant went down to the marketplace, and there he saw me standing in the crowd, and he came to me and said, "Why did you make a threatening gesture to my servant when you saw him this morning?" "Oh, that was not a threatening gesture," I said. "It was only a start of surprise. I was astonished to see him in Baghdad, for I have an appointment with him tonight in Samara."
Wonderful. Thank you. And for those of you listening in, if there are questions in your mind, then do put them across. This is an interactive session. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you a question or two and see if you are going to react to those. And so who is the me in this entire story? If you could write quickly the answer to that, it would be wonderful. And what is the story about? I mean, at the end of the day, what is it that the author, in such short span of few words, has put across? Yet an entertaining story. It's got a beginning. It's something that has been wrapped up completely, and it has caught your interest. There is a lot of emotion to it. So I'm going to go for all this to Anamika, and I'm going to ask her, what is it that makes a story complete? I mean, is there a process to it? Is there a sequence to it? Is there a formula to it? Anamika, all yours.
Okay, thank you, Neeti. So when we look at stories, whatever be their size, length, and whatever be their genre, there is something very unique about every story, and that is we can divide it into a clear beginning, a clear end, and there's a middle which links the beginning and the end. So when we want to write the story also, we have to bear that in mind. There has to be a clear beginning, a clear ending, and a middle which will link the different attributes. So I'll just try and share this with you.
Okay.
I have would like to share this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is wonderful. Well put. And everybody who's watching, you know, there is, when we say something and reinforce it visually, it settles down into our very being. And I'm sure you'll always know this sequence of story writing, a beginning, the middle, and the end. But of course, it's not going to be left loose-ended like that. We are going to go ahead with this, and we are going to ask Anamika to unravel each portion of it and tell us what is a beginning.
Right.
And then we go on.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Want to stop sharing this? Yeah.
Thank you.
When we, like all good things, we have to have a plan in place. And so before we start writing, we have to make a plan. And how do we plan for a story is we start with the plot. So you ask me, what's a plot? So the plot is basically the unfolding of the events in the story.
Okay.
Before we start writing, if we can sum it up in a nutshell, that this is the story I'm going to talk about or write, and if I can write it in a nutshell, in one sentence, then I can frame my plot accordingly. So we have to be, then it gives me an idea of where I'm headed, say for the setting.
So, our audience is going to be asking themselves whether they have the ability to put it into one sentence. You think the first trial will help them do that? Or can they begin with, let's say, 3 sentences or 4, and then as they mull upon their own plot, keep concising it, tightening it to make it, a one feature, one sentence, because it's important that they do that, because the core of their story is going to be that sentence. Otherwise, it will be all over the place. So they have to hold on to the thread of that plot and then make sure they get it across.
Absolutely right. And you put it so well, Neeti ji, that basically it doesn't matter whether it's a one sentence or a couple of sentences, but the idea, what you want to communicate with your readers or to your listeners as you're narrating the story, if it can be brief, then you can elaborate it as much as you want. And then you basically are working on the premise that the beginning and the end has to be linked. So you can't be thinking of an ending which is difficult to connect with the beginning, or a beginning which is going, which is starting somewhere and you don't know how to end it.
But, that's a wonderful way to put it, because you're putting it all in a sequence and into a thread, kind of beading it together into a necklace of beads, so to speak. But sometimes, even when I'm doing my writing, and I admit to this, I start off with a certain kind of thought, and then I find midway I have evolved into something else. Maybe I find a certain ending to be there. And it has happened to me a couple of times that I have thought of a couple or 3 or endings. And then, when I've reached the end, just kind of taken a call on it, and sometimes written 2 stories with the same story with 2 endings. Is that okay with you? Do you think, am I going against the rules of story writing?
Firstly, Neeti ji, that we cannot have any governing rules for story writing, because as many people, those many stories. In fact, there's a very famous proverb from the Hopi Indians, which says, those who tell the stories rule the world. So there cannot be rules for us.
Yes.
Kudos to your creativity that, with the same circumstances, you can think of so many endings that I guess even our readers, our listeners will be able to do once they kind of get used to the flow, right? Then you can like the river flowing, whether it's meandering to the left or meandering to the right, wherever it wishes to go. So in fact, that's what I would suggest to writers to do as they progress, because the first time they finished writing a story, we call it the first draft, I would urge them to go back and look at it again. Probably then the mind is already, flowing with ideas. They'll get some more ideas and they'll get a different ending, probably like you did. And maybe that's more interesting and they opt for that.
So I think
have
what
3 stories.
I have put my foot into my mouth there. What I will do today is not leave our audience and the ones who are tuned in lurch. I will try. In fact, I will read a story of mine where I will give you a glimpse into whether multiple endings are possible. So I should not ask something or say something and not be able to substantiate it in any way. So that is my promise. Hold on to it, everybody. Towards the end, I will try and read a story which has, you write the end to it. For me, I'll be very happy. There's a certain ending I've given it, and certain ending I've given it, a couple of them actually, in fact. And please let your questions keep coming in, because this is an interactive session, and Sapna ji is keeping track, and she will be catching us every now and then with questions, and we would love to answer them. So back to you, Anamika. We have spoken about briefly so far about the plot. Is there a certain sequence to a plot also? I mean, how do we go about plotting the story, so to speak?
Yes, that's a very, very interesting place that you have brought the whole discussion to. Definitely, because like I said, the plot means, basically you are aligning a sequence of events that probably the character is being exposed to. Now, before we start, we should know where we are starting. So we start with the setting. The setting is, where exactly is the story taking place? Which city? Is it in a mountainous place? Is it in the desert? Is it which era, time era? Whether it's the present contemporary time, whether it is the past medieval times, whether it's the ancient times, or whether it's a story in the future. So, accordingly, everything around it will change. If I have a story in the medieval period, I cannot be having mobiles then. I will have to think about what will be the way of communication that time. If I'm talking about the future, maybe many things I'll have to think about because technology would have definitely advanced. And there will be things which probably we have never seen or heard, but maybe a possibility in the future. For example, there was a very interesting conversation with some friends, like-minded friends, who were talking about being able to see one another, like this particular, event that we are involved in right now, we are participating in. We are in different corners of the world, which was not something, even 2 years back, we never thought of it, even though there was a video call happening. But if I'm talking about the future, maybe we talk about cooking something here and then somebody just transporting it, to wherever you want it. That would be really wonderful.
In fact, you've kind of said it so well that you have to be very careful, especially if you are choosing a time zone of a certain period of time. I'm here borrowing an example from period films. If you watch them, everybody, then you will find that you cannot possibly put a mythological character into bell bottoms or jeans. I mean, it looks so funny, isn't it? So the people who are involved in making that film have designers, costume designers, who make sure they get that era right. So for a writer too, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to be sure of what you're saying, and research then comes into plays a very important factor. Yes. In fact, all of us who write, it seems to be effortless on the face of it, but very often a lot of research and thought has gone into it, because you want to sound authentic. It's like, when if your story is free flowing and impactful, it's almost like a visit to, if I may again take another analogy, of visiting a 5-star hotel where everything seems to be laid out and you're so comfortable, but you don't know the huge team that is working behind the scenes to give you that experience. So as an author, if you want to give an experience of a certain kind, you want to invite readers into your world and you want to keep them there, because that's what you do as a story writer. You borrow time from others and create a world, and then you make them enter your world, and you want to hold them there till as long as you are the one narrating. And if you want to do that, make sure you have a free-flowing, smooth narrative, and never, never, never cut short on the thought, the drafting, and the research that goes with it. Am I right, Anamika?
Absolutely, Neeti ma'am. Absolutely right. And
now, so you also said that we have to have a beginning.
Yes, a beginning, right? Very clear. So that before the beginning, or they go hand in hand, the setting, where is my story taking place? And then I begin to narrate the story. So now when I'm starting to narrate the story, I have to have a very clear idea about who the story is about. That's my protagonist, my main character. And what are the hurdles or challenges that is going to be faced by him, which we call a conflict. So the conflict can be that the person is having a conflict with himself, with his own ideas, maybe his conscience, his upbringing or her upbringing. There could be a conflict between two characters, which is most common, right? The hero and the villain, the protagonist
and the heroine.
Oh, yes, definitely. And once we think of the conflict, now we need to find out the resolution. Like you said, it has to be believable and authentic so that the readers enjoy. Otherwise, the readers will not enjoy, neither will you enjoy writing it, right? So the setting, the conflict, and the resolution, if we have all these planned, have it all charted out, then I think we can really enjoy the task of writing a story.
So if I were to kind of repeat for everybody's sake what you've just said and summarize it. So the beginning is when you begin to unfold the setting of your story, time, characters, some of course will join later. And then conflict is what is actually the situation you're building your story around. Am I right? So now we come to the third part of it, which is how do you conclude?
Yes. So that is the resolution. Because if you have a conflict, it has to be resolved.
All right.
Right? So before we go further, I want you to experience a little bit of writing. So I will just share my screen. And Neeti ji, you will have to just participate. I hope your pencil or pen is ready. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a few words. I want you to list 3 colors, 3 emotions, and 3 places. Any 3 that come to your mind.
You have other than what is there?
That will be nice. Other than what is there, because these 3 I have selected.
So okay, colors can be green, yellow. Also. Okay. Then you want to go with simpler words first. Then
yes, the simpler ones.
Green, yellow, and purple, let's say, instead of saying lilac or okay. Emotions,
yes.
You've said happy, sad, amazed. So I'm going to say depressed. I'm going to say
joy.
I would take one of yours, excited.
Yes.
And thoughtful. Okay.
Very nice.
And places.
And some places.
I am going to go with the broader places. Then I go to a beach. I go to snow-clad mountains. Though you've mentioned Himalayas, but I go to snow-clad mountains.
Sure.
And then I go into riverside, riverbank.
Very nice. So this we can choose these words, and I want to show you that as writers, let's practice writing and try and connect what we think we don't connect regularly. So maybe when we are looking at colors, we are not really thinking of emotions or places. So I want, as people who would like to write, to just kind of exercise our brain to connect dots. And rather than red, why not pick up scarlet? The connotations change. And that is what I want you to feel when you look at words, when you read the words, when you say it out loud. Just feel the words. Look at the connotations. When I say blue, it has so many connotations. But when I say cerulean, again, it brings into your mind the image of the cerulean skies over probably the oceans. White. And when I say ivory, the richness comes along with the color. So I would like you to take one color, one emotion, and one place and take it together and frame a sentence.
So out of this, if I were to take, I would take ivory, exhilarated, and Himalayas.
Please go ahead.
I've taken ivory, exhilarated, and Himalayas.
Yes. Now, how would you weave it into a sentence?
Help me. because that's what the audience is looking at, for you to lead them, because they're forming the sentence in their mind, and for them to get a kind of a sequence from you saying, why is it that you have to introduce the color, the emotion, and the place? Because would you like to answer that?
Sure. So I like to say that I can say a very simple sentence when I start writing my story, and then when I read it again, that after the first draft, I've said that we should go back and read it again. Oh, it's pouring out here right now. I hope it doesn't disturb the volume and the sound. So I would like to say, probably frame a sentence like, the ivory white peaks of the Himalayas bring immense joy and make me feel exhilarated.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just saying that looking at the snowy white mountains, I feel happy, the moment I use these words, which have a deeper connotation attached to it, you are transporting your reader from just the two dimension of the paper and the word into the image itself.
Wonderfully said, Anamika.
Themselves into the scene.
Yes. So what Anamika is alluding to here, everyone, is imagery. You see, what have you done as a story writer is, of course, you've invited people into your own world that you've created, and you want to keep people there. But then they have to see something over there. And how do you make people see what you want them to see, unless you give it emotion, unless you give it color, and unless you give that setting? So now over here, I have a question for you, Anamika. Very often, it is when we begin to write, it is, we are unsure of the various other connotations attached to the whatever the word is. For example, you said we could use scarlet instead of red. Or if I go for green, I chose green. And suppose I say verdant instead, it would. But for me, I would like you to answer this question. Is it okay to use it the very first time, or should we be cautious and then make sure that we know ourselves and know how to put it into a sentence before we go venturing into something which we are not sure of?
Okay, so I had a two-point agenda here. Okay. Apart from asking you to explore your vocabulary,
right,
rather than go to the word which comes first to your mind, and you write down your first draft, and I said, again, I ask you and urge you to go back and read your story again. Otherwise, what happens sometimes when we are finished writing a letter or writing a poem or a story, we are so thrilled with ourselves that we have succeeded in completing our task or whatever we chose to do. But if we go and read it again, maybe like you came up with 3 alternate endings, you come up with something which, communicates a more interesting meaning to your reader and what you're actually looking at. So I want you to explore vocabulary and share that vocabulary with your readers, because it enhances their experience. Like I said, it transports them immediately into the story and into the setting, into the minds of the character. When you're trying to say what are the thoughts in the minds of the characters, you will see how beautifully it emerges. And your work is done, because your readers are going to carry that impact. After they've shut the book, close the pages, that word is going to linger on in their mind. And
absolutely, absolutely. I would just like to add 2 more things to this, that when you go into a phase of exploration, each one of you ensure that you have used the word in its right way. Otherwise, go for the simpler form till you have become comfortable with making your writing more complicated. Number 2, it is know your audience and know who you are writing for. So very often, again, when I sit down to write for young children who are 3 to 5 years of age, 5 to 7 years of age, I have to struggle with myself. I'm not saying it in any negative way, but it's a pleasant struggle, because I have to then shift my focus and put myself in the shoes of that 5-year-old. And that 5-year-old has a vocabulary which is only those many words.
Yeah.
So I want that child to enjoy what I'm saying, yet introduce maybe something a little bit more so that the child's learning is enhanced, then I have to put in a lot of effort into it. So know your audience, know who you are targeting as a reader, and therefore build your vocabulary around you. But as a writer, you're under the scanner. Make sure you say it right. No forgiveness for bad grammar, bad punctuation, and misuse of vocabulary, if I might say that. All right. So let's now proceed with, now that we've spoken about our plot and we've spoken about conflict and setting and resolution. Okay, resolution is the coming to the end of the story. Anything you'd like to add there?
So I would also like to ask Sapna ji if there are some questions for us before we proceed.
Any further? Okay.
Yeah.
Challenge us.
Oh yes, questions and questions.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Lovely.
Happy to hear that.
And we might add, Sapna ji. Sapna ji.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
No, I was just going to reinforce what you said in the beginning, that if there are some questions we take now and there are some which we are not able to take, please don't feel disheartened. We are going to take them up the next time. And keep our treasure box full of your questions, very dear to our heart, and we will continue to weave our programs around them and to answer them. Thank you. Sorry for interruption.
No problem.
Please, Sapna ji.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that because there are so many of them.
Oh,
and,
how nice.
Already, as few questions probably you have covered already, but then there might be questions which we won't be able to cover up right now. There are questions which are which are questions which will be getting solved in the next coming up session too.
Yes.
So all those, whoever I am taking the questions, I will be forwarding it to Neeti ma'am and Anamika ji. There is another speaker who will be coming next time as well. So don't get disheartened if we don't take up your questions. I will take up one question for sure to start with, because there are too many of them.
Okay.
Okay, let me start with the first question, which comes straight away to me. All right, the people who are happy that you have been emphasizing on grammar and punctuation, because there was another question earlier which Ekta had posted, and we do face it so often. We have contests going on, and many a times the story writers doesn't understand, they don't understand the importance of punctuations, and a small little full stop and a small little comma and a small, hyphen makes a difference. And there, even when you're writing for contests or even for your own self, you must for sure make sure that, grammar and punctuation is perfect. So maybe some of them might get the answer for not winning too after listening to your this amazing session. Now the questions which are there.
May I cover that just in a sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
So here I would like to say, ma'am has pointed out about grammar, and I did too. See, a very important part of story writing is dialogue writing. And very, very often people make errors of punctuation and grammar there. And we will take up a separate session on dialogue writing in story writing. Sapna ji, if I have your promise there, we will do it for our audience as a separate session altogether.
To do it together. That we all.
Thank you. So I hope people are happy hearing that. We will certainly do it.
All right, there's one question which I can probably take right now, although we will be doing that topic as well later on in detail. What are the elements that make a character interesting?
Oh, we were just going to step into that particular phase, and let's go ahead.
Actually, that's why I was actually thinking, let's finish the slides first. Let's finish the session first. Probably you will have a lot of them covered, but I'll still put it on to you. Can a plot have more than one setting? That's one question by Achal.
Sure.
The earlier question was from Ekta. Ekta is a moderator. You all know her. There are a lot of questions we keep on discussing also. So there are a lot of questions coming from there.
It's a good question. I love the question. Anamika, are you taking it? Please do.
Yeah, so I'll take about the different settings in the plot. Of course, we can have different settings in the plot. And that is how, the planning and the plotting is so important.
Absolutely. That's also another question.
So let me elucidate on that. Let me elucidate on that. Suppose have you all read H.G. Wells' Time Machine? Have you watched the film Back to the Future? I mean, who stops you from crossing time zones and settings. You might be at the Himalayas at one point in time and then off to the Sahara. So what you need to have very clear, there is a big plot, the main plot, and there are subplots. And accordingly, your setting, your characters, your colors, your emotions, everything can change. But then that is getting into a more complex form of story writing. And as we said in the beginning, we are looking at something very, very basic now. But again, we are going to hold very onto this question, which is a wonderful question. And we will then step into one of our sessions into subplots of stories and, making a more elaborate story where there's a main plot and there's subplots and all.
Probably what you're talking about, and what there is question about structuring a plot too. So there are various aspects of story writing.
Yes, and we are so happy to hear.
A very basic session where we are just covering the base of it, and we will delve into all these questions too.
No promise of that.
Now, one question comes from Achal again. Can the endings be sad? Do readers like to read stories like these? As a writer, what would you both say?
Okay, Anamika, yours, and then I
didn't get the question. Sorry, Sapna ji. What was the question?
Okay, the question is, can the endings be sad? Do readers like to read stories like these?
Shakespeare is proof of his tragedies. They are still going strong. So and many movies which have been blockbuster hits have had tragic endings. So that's up to you, the author. So you are the creator. You can do anything. You want to make people happy, go ahead with a happy one. You want to make people sad, you can go with a tragic ending. You want to leave a mystery, you can have a cliffhanger. You want to make a serial, you can, end at somewhere, and you let the readers.
Season 2 to come.
Yeah. And I believe the readers come with their experiences. The readers bring a lot. So you have to accommodate those spaces, The readers come with their interpretations, their experiences. Sometimes a reader is going to bring in sublimation to your work, because you may have written it from one point of view, but we don't know what experience that reader has had, and they feel it's a mystical story and it's amazing. So when you are writing, you can do anything. You are the creator. Be responsible, make it believable, that's all. But like Neeti said, you can do time travel, you can do anything. And H.G. Wells.
Yes, for tragic endings, I might like to add over here, probably the question has come from someone who is going through this phase of, how to end stories. And I think it's a very good question. If you can make your tragedy believable, authentic, you can get away with it. But be careful, because you're handling emotions. When you take your readers on an emotional trip, justify each bit of that emotion. And this question may also come from the fact that we are facing pandemic times. And so perhaps, you want a ray of hope rather than, okay, everything's folded up. Maybe you could do a combination. There is something that is coming to an ending, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So again, it's as a writer, it's like being the creator. The universe, has been created by somebody, and here you're creating an alternate universe of yours. And so you can decide what you want. But like I said, know your readers, know your audience, know what the pulse of the, your readers is, and go ahead. And if you can make it believable, you can get away with it. Why not?
So I will just share a slide
please.
In response to what
Sapna ji has a question. Yes, please.
There are many more, but I will just take one more by Jamuna Iyer.
Okay.
She's asking, can we use long dialogues between two characters in a story?
Okay. Right. Anamika?
Yeah, of course you can use long dialogues, but it's not simple dialogues. When we are writing dialogues in a story, there's a purpose, because we are limited by time and we are limited by words, probably. So we use dialogues as a tool to either unfold the layers of the character, so the readers can get an idea of what kind of a character he or she is, how they think, what are their beliefs. And then we also use dialogues to carry the story forward. And so a hi, bye, that is not the dialogue we are looking at. in the story writing scenario, when we use dialogues, it is much more meaningful. It has to be, it has to communicate between the characters as well as communicate between the lines to the readers. Of course.
Okay. Let me add to
yes,
that.
Neeti, yes.
See, there are times I will not name the book or the author, but I have started to, there are times in the whole paragraph, big, huge one, consists of one dialogue, and you're breathless by the time you've reached the end of it. You've lost contact with how it began and where it ended, so you end up reading it 3 times. Now, if you want to try something that long, be very careful. Grammar and punctuation I've been talking about. That's one. It's a difficult thing to pull off because it's not going to be one emotion in the same dialogue. It's going to be various emotions in that same dialogue. Make sure you get it right. You've got to have a good hold on your writing. And like I said, you have to make it, the thread has to be very strong. Yeah. So if I've read writers who are really well renowned and then found myself reading a dialogue which is almost a page long and I've had to go back 3 times, well, you have to really know your art very well, very well. Secondly, we will go into that part perhaps in detail. Your character is of a certain kind. So before you start giving that person the liberty to speak that much, is your character justifying that particular sermon or speech? Or is it some, offhand character and suddenly you write a long dialogue? So everything has to gel. That is why you have to live your story and relive your story many, many times, and then make a final draft and get people to, be a participant in that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was going to respond to Sapna ji's previous question about whether there's a structure, and I would like to just share this with you. Sorry, I have to first share this. And so this is the general structure that we follow for a short story or even for a drama or long novel. There is a setting which we start off with, the exposition. There's the rising action, that's the problems or the challenges faced by our character. The climax, the important turning point of the story where the most important action takes place. And then the falling action as the resolution is taking place and we reach the end, where don't leave any loose ends. If then the whys have to be answered, because otherwise the reader will be very unsatisfied. So this is the general structure of a narration, of a narrative that we follow. Very simple. And we can follow it for all the story.
So Anamika, the leading question to this and an obvious one is, so we've got all our tools all lined up, everything has been put into words and the draft is ready. So the first draft is ready. What do we do now?
We go back and read it. Can I share a story that I have written to give you an idea?
Please. Yeah. And tell us how to proceed with that first draft.
Yes. So I'll just read it out for you. It's called 2021. When the prompt was given to me 2021 around the New Year's time, I knew that people were going to think about the year 2020 and they were going to think of the year 2021. So when I was making the plot of my story, I said, can I do something different with it? So I chose this very short story to write this very short story. And this is how it goes. The group had assembled on the ground as pre-planned, a motley group of 11 boys and girls, shapes, sizes, and ages. Then began the most crucial job of the team selection. But first came the selection of the captains. Everyone wanted to be the captain, from Ravi, who thought himself no less than the Shastri, the eldest at 11, to Bhola at the ripe young age of 7, who perceived himself to be going in the footsteps of the god of cricket. Ravi used all his diplomacy and negotiating skills to propose Ravi himself and Sachin to be the captains, as they had proved their skills by scoring the maximum runs last year. The others could not argue about that, so grudgingly they agreed. Sachin tossed a reverential salute to Ravi in thanks. Now began the task of selecting the teams. The two captains had a private meeting for a few minutes and decided they would call out their teams based on the individual skills. First, the batsmen. Ravi called for Sumit and Sachin chose Hira, the fiery batsman. Sita, the super bowler, found herself on Ravi's team, as did Lakshmi, the no-nonsense fielder. Sachin, on the other hand, picked Gurpreet, the all-rounder, and Preeti, the ace bowler. Bhola was stunned to see the grown-ups had not picked him till the last. He craned his neck to look at the tall, lanky Ravi, and then stare at Sachin, who was not so tall, but had the most stylish haircut, with the high top taper fade, which flopped majestically when he ran. He could feel tears pricking his eyes, the rejection washing over him, and that too, when he was as good a batsman as any one of them, and a mean fielder to boot. No ball ever went past him. Sachin looked at his team, looking for some indication, the stoic expressions not giving him any hint whatsoever. Ravi, on the other hand, looked at Bhola. He recalled the time when he was in such a situation and his wise grandfather had asked the older boys that the team, which had a handicap, would be given more chances to rule out the discrepancy. He understood Bhola's pain, and the kid was good. Ravi cleared his throat and looked at Sachin. I will take Bhola, but we will have to make some changes, you know. We are playing 20-20, but Bhola, being the youngest, barely taller than the bat himself, will be a handicap. Okay, so what do you want? Asked Sachin. Nothing much, just 1 over more. We will play 20-21. So that was the resolution. Thank you so much.
Beautifully written, beautifully narrated. And I'm back to pestering you with the question here. So how many drafts did you go through before you finalized the story?
This I made 2 drafts because the idea was very clear in my mind as I was, when I was considering couple of story lines, plots. Then I thought this will be something different. It's going to be entertaining and it's going to be interesting because it's a different concept. I chose 2020. The moment I heard 2020, it brought to my mind 2020 cricket in a cricket crazy country. It brought to me 2020 vision, the perfect vision. And then I said, if we add one more, what could we do? 2021 was the year which was promising so much. The vaccine would be here, so much of hope. So I wanted it to be hopeful. And that is how I went about it. So when I started writing, I had to, there was a question about characters and how to make them realistic. So when I was writing, if I even had to mention 8 to 10 students, 8 to 10 children, I needed to know how they were different from each other. So I actually sat down and wrote down the names and identified some characteristic traits. Then I toned it down as per the requirement of my story. When I read the story after I finished it once, I thought that, I could use some better words in places. And because it was pertaining to children, it had to be simpler dialogues, language. Yes. The setting was, I wanted a setting which everybody could identify with. It could be any ground which is adjoining your home. It could be a ground which you may have seen as you travel by in any city. And where, we'll see a collection of children gathering to play cricket, being the most favorite game, and all sizes you see. So that is how 2 drafts I made for this story.
Personally speaking, even though I've been writing not a very long while, but let's say a certain amount of time I have been writing, and there are times when I have felt very happy with what I've written. But, one has to be humble at the end of it and understand that what I am seeing as a perfect piece of writing, I am seeing it because I already had it in my vision. I knew what was it that I wanted to see. But am I being able to transfer my vision to my reader? I don't know. So, if you have your brothers, sisters, friends, husband, children who will go through your draft, please, I suggest you do that, because when I hand it over to my husband, I'm standing there and quite ready to receive the criticism, which I do get from time to time, because if he says he can't follow it, then I have to do something to remedy that. If my reader cannot enter my world and know what I'm saying, then I'm not done. So there is no amount of draft, first draft, second draft, or any number of trials, isn't it, till you get to where, okay, let's say the reader is generally understanding you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, okay. You put it in, you nailed it. Like, sharing your drafts with the people around you, who know you, who you know, and it's in an informal setting that you are exchanging your most precious thing, that is your story. And yes, sometimes it seems perfect to us, but I will bring your attention to the use of punctuation here. So here you can say, let's eat, grandma, or you can say without a comma, let's eat, grandma. Either you
yes, and absolutely,
grandma,
and
or you eat gobble up grandma.
We will do a session of just writing and grammar and punctuation. In fact, there is another portion of what you just said, which we need to take up separately, and there's a lot of people sitting there who may have made a note of it. When you said you had developed, decided which characters were going to be a part of your story, then you sat down and wrote, gave names and gave a characteristic. That is all about character building. In fact, CBSE books and a lot of books, even children's books, have certain kind of blank drawings whereby, you are supposed to draw the eyes and then describe them. The kind of hair you would like to give that, stick figure, and then say what kind of hair. These are all exercises that go towards building a character, giving that character life, shape, and bringing that character to life. So we will be looking at this as a separate.
I will be expecting that one special session only for those characters, building the characters.
It's so important. Imagery, character building, plotting, subplotting, and definitely grammar and punctuation. Good God, we've got a series of sessions coming.
Yes, yes. Lot of
Any more questions before we kind of think of winding up? I have a story which I promised.
I'm actually so confused which one to take and which one to leave. Okay, let me take one more question here.
Right.
Can monologues be more effective in comparison to dialogues? Which of them is more captivating for readers? That's coming from Poonam Daga.
Anamika? And I will take it up.
Yes, some of the most poignant dialogues have been monologues. I mean, I again go back to the bard Shakespeare. Who can forget the impressions created by Mark Antony or Caesar for himself, right? What about they were monologues in The Merchant of Venice also, so you can see that monologues, but they have to be handled very well. And I'm quoting the master in the field. Even Robert Browning's poem, they are monologues, some of them, and they are so beautiful, the last touches, right? So beautifully handled. But all of us may not have that skill. And like Neeti ji was mentioning, that one page long dialogue, which was actually a monologue by one character, it may not be able to sustain the interest of the reader. It may not be able to connect with the reader. I mean, there might be a disconnect because there are changes in emotions, and it's a skill. Like all skills, the more you practice, you become better at it. And also it has to be relevant. If it is irrelevant, then it becomes dry. So a dialogue between two people. Why do we keep saying, let's have a dialogue? Because when two minds meet, there's an interaction, and that becomes more meaningful, more purposeful, and more interesting. Am I right, Neeti ji?
Anji, absolutely. I have wonderfully said, and I'll just add to it. You read a book called from Ernest Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea, and it's almost a single person narrative.
Yes.
and it takes you through, it holds your attention. Now, if you're looking at a monologue, it has to be one that will take the reader through probably a plethora of emotions. You know, is it something that you want, a part of your plot that you want, and therefore you change your tone, you change your punctuation and grammar accordingly, and then you will be able to hold the attention of the reader. Another way a monologue may be a very good idea is when you want to portray somebody's thought process. So instead of writing, so-and-so was thinking like this, you can make a first person, monologue out of that, where the mind is thinking. Very often you find even in visual. I'm not.
No, you're fine.
Okay, right. So like, for example, very often we find even in films and so on, that the person's thought process is being said as a dialogue. In fact, that person is enacting that emotion. You could do that. It's dramatization. Again, you're the creator. The universe is yours to create and how you want to. But remember to be sure yourself, to be sure of your art. And before you step into complex grounds, start at step 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the sky's the limit.
Yes, very well said. Very well said.
So if I did promise everyone that I would read a short story of multiple endings, or maybe no ending, you give the ending. Let's see. First of all, it's a narrative. So we haven't touched upon the various genres of short story. And we've said that stories are everywhere. You did say Anamika. Depends on where you pick up. This is a first-hand kind of narrative. So here I go. It's called A Dark Journey. So somebody was asking about, darkness also. So anyway, it's called A Dark Journey. Okay. Pardon my reading glasses, please. And my profile also. On that dark, fateful night, 3 inebriated men with torn jeans, long oily hair, and tattoos clambered onto the 3 empty berths in her air-conditioned 2-tier compartment area. She instinctively pulled her 2-year-old son closer. Soon, lewd Hindi songs were heard. She objected politely and was laughed at. Could none hear them? So, when you're in a train compartment by yourself and you feel your space is being abused, you're alone and you're vulnerable because you're a mother with a child, and then nobody steps forward. The entire world is silent to what is happening. Okay. The train chugged, swayed, and drifted off. She drifted off along with the train movement. Shouts jerked her awake as she became witness to a full-fledged fight. All 3 were at each other's throats, panting, swearing, pummeling, blood running down their faces. She pushed her baby boy into a corner, becoming a human shield, and screamed as they tumbled near her. Her son, now petrified, began hollering. Have mercy, I have a child with me. I beg you, my son will get hurt. She pleaded and pleaded as she unsuccessfully shoved at the enraged, entangled mass. Life was now at risk, and the possibility of survival became remote with each passing sound, with each passing second. Adrenaline rush along with a mother's inherent protective instinct kicked in. She let out a yell, applied all her strength, hauled herself upright, and pulled the emergency brake as the steel of a sharp knife held in arced hand glinted, shining bright in the overhead light.
Wow. That was wonderful.
So the ending is yours to envision. I have left it here. It's obvious it's a personal experience, so I know the ending, but I have left it like this.
Oh my God.
I have left it for you to give it, or I have left it with you to imagine what my emotions may have been, what I went through, or is it important to know the end, or just go with the emotion, or would you like to give it ending? That's up to you, but I have left it just there, ... Thank you for listening.
Beautifully written. Beautifully expressed.
Thank you. So that answers the concluding part of any narrative. Where do you want to leave your audience? So do I want them to keep living this picture and pray for me and for the child who was with me at that point in time? Thank you.
You had my complete attention and goosebumps.
Thank you. That's kind of
anticipating. Yeah.
So we wrap up, Sapna ji, with your permission, or is there something else that?
No, absolutely. See, frankly, but there are a lot of questions which are still there, which I'm sure we are going to be covering in the coming up session.
Promise.
So yes, that is a promise. So keep watching us, all the viewers. I think they will be able to get all the answers. So yes, Neeti ji, you can for sure you can continue.
So my gratitude to Anamika for being with us and so wonderfully charting out the story of a short story. Absolutely. And Sapna ji, for you to have given us this platform for reaching out to so many and making life beautiful for so many. Gratitude unlimited. Namaskar. Thank you. And we must meet again. Keep telling us what to do ahead. Show us the way. We are quite okay with taking the path you show us and maybe shed light on some more paths.
Yes, and I can remind everybody that next weekend we are coming in again with the Learning Lab session. Adyan Shala, UBI Adyan Shala ki jo agli kadi hai. We have it happening on the next Sunday again. The next weekend is a Hindi Adyan Shala. So Hindi में haiku किस तरह से लिखे जाते हैं उस पे बात करी जाएगी. पिछली अध्ययन शाला में डॉक्टर जगदीश व्योम जी हमारे साथ जुड़े थे. वही कड़ी हम आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं ताकि हम हाइकू पे ज्यादा डिटेल में बात कर सकें. यदि आपके पास कोई और क्वेश्चंस हिंदी के हाइकू से रिलेटेड है, आज भी आप कमेंट बॉक्स में लिख सकते हैं. मैं वहां से लेके अगले सेशन के लिए आपके लिए तैयार रखूंगी जवाब. Or yes, and continuing the English Learning Labs program, we will be meeting again next Sunday. Again, same time, same day. And thank you so much, Anamika ji, for your time. Neeti ji, wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very kind of you.
Thank you, Sapna ji.
Session. Thanks to you, Neeti ji. And
thank you. Very kind of you. My pleasure.
And all the viewers, thank you so much for being there. Keep watching, come back, and you can watch it again. Although it's another few days down the line, it will be posted on the YouTube channel as well. So all the Learning Lab program series is completely there. So for that purpose, we will be also posting it there. But till then, you can come back to the group, watch it, bring in more people who want to learn how to write a short story, ask more questions. Another questions added will be added to the kitty too. So keep watching and keep questioning and keep learning along. Bye-bye, everybody. Shabba khair. Good night. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.